Hey, what's up, everybody? Paul here, Left Coast Model Car Builds. Happy Sunday. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Wanted to do a quick little video here on paint. So, a couple of questions that came up was on when I'm talking mixing ratios 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1. What exactly is that referring to? And materials in general. So, if you saw the thumbnail, I've got four models here, each a different either type of paint or sprayed differently as far as the start to finish. So now I'm just going to kind of go through this on what I work with. There is a ton of different stuff from spray can hobby stuff, spray can automotive paints, hobby paints, craft paints, everything. So I'm going to go through some of the basics of what I started with, what I learned with, what I currently use. So initially, my first model that I actually sprayed and finished was a single stage enamel, meaning it was that color. There were no other parts to it. It was paint, a little bit of reducer, and that was it. No clear. And that was this old 49 Ford, which I'm going to be building something similar to this in my group build. You guys can check that out. There's a video on it. It goes through this March of next year. Basically, just take something, push yourself, or take something like I am, where this was one of my first builds. I'm going to rebuild a new one of these, just, improved with the skills and everything I've learned over the last 20, 30 years since I built this. So this is a single stage enamel, just the straight red. Like I say, this cured on its own, no clear, anything. That's it. Not bad. You can work with these. This I all I did was clean this up. Literally took some wipe and shine and dusted it off. But not bad. And again, this was painted probably back in 1992, I'm going to say. So this is your single stage enamel paint. The other thing we use, House of Colors urethanes. So a urethane paint, similar, it can be left how it is, or it could have a clear coat over it. So I have two candy urethanes here. One's cleared, one's not. So this is when Shazoom, the model, came out. This is one my father built. This is straight urethane candy over a silver base. This is candy apple red over silver. And there's no clear on this. There's really not, I don't think, hint. So we'll get into rubbing and stuff. Maybe at the end of this, we'll see how long it goes. But this is just candy urethane. So urethane has a hardener added to it, like a clear. So it will harden. It's, I guess, longevity. It'll last, and you can get a clear over it. When we're spraying the automotive candies like this, the one thing is buildup, because you have your base color, which in this case was a silver, metallic silver. Then you have your candy urethane, which is a little thicker than a base because it has the hardener in it. Then by the time you get your clear, you can start to build up and lose door lines and things like that. That's what my father always worries about when spraying like a 24th, 25th scale model with the urethanes, is the buildup and losing stuff. I like to clear them. So this Riviera is one I built years ago, way back when. This is candy tangerine over a silver base, and then it's been cleared. Let me take the hood off so we don't lose it. So you can't really see the candy in here. I mentioned it before. The lighting's not the best for that. But this is an old build. You see kind of taking the emblems, door handles, stuff like that off. Kind of a mild custom. But again, so this is your candy tangerine urethane with a clear coat over it. Okay. Then what we have is what we call a base coat clear coat. This is a 50 Oldsmobile my dad built. This is just take the hood off. nice silver base with a clear coat. This is probably what we spray the most. And now you've even got your candy base coats, right? And it lays on thinner. It's not as thick as a urethane because the paint on this is just color and reducer. So you kind of see that. It's a cool little build. Tried to pick some builds here that you guys probably haven't seen other than my 49. So let's talk about the paints a little bit. When I first started, my father had a lot of lacquers out here, and a friend of ours, a good friend that builds, that's pretty much exclusively what he used was lacquers because he came up painting real cars with lacquer. That's what he's used to. So lacquers, a little different beast. I've not personally sprayed a lot of them. I've sprayed some. You can layer it on a number of coats and then take and rub that down to get your finish, and it's beautiful if it's done right. Or you can put a clear over a lacquer. One thing with lacquers, well, there's a few things, but one is you really don't want to put lacquer over other materials, other bases, urethanes, enamels. Generally, if you start with a lacquer, something goes wrong, you can, we call it nib it down, especially on a model, kind of smooth it out, and then go with an enamel or a base or a urethane over it, especially if it's cured out. One of my first models, I started with a lacquer. It was a little cold. It blushed, meaning it looked like a cloud, through little clouds throughout the model. Nibbed it down. 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, I was spraying a base coat, cleared it. It was beautiful. So that's the thing with lacquers. They can definitely be a little more finicky to the elements. Now, when you get into urethanes, you're going to have that hardener component, right? So like our candy urethanes, you have the color, you have the hardener, and then you have the reducer. So lacquers, you generally have a lacquer thinner, right? It thins down your material. Base coats, urethanes, we have reducers. So when you get into base coats, same thing. You have your color and your reducer. One of the big differences in base, that's it. So on a real car, your elements, a base coat needs that clear, or the elements, the environment it'll destroy that paint because there's no protective aspect to it. Whereas a urethane, you have at minimum that hardener to it. An enamel, you have that hardener aspect where it actually hardens up and finishes. Clear can be optional. Most people do clear them or like to clear them as extra protectant, get more out of it, more longevity out of the color, the paint. Base coat, clear coat, unless models are a lot different. They're not out in the weather. They're typically on our shelves, right? So we kind of get away from that aspect. I've based stuff and just left it as that to be like a satin paint job. You can put a dull coat over if you like. So that kind of gives you a background on the colors. When you get into clear, you have your 1Ks, 2Ks. People have asked, well, what's the difference? Best of my knowledge, 1K is something where you have your clear material and there's a component to it that's going to harden. So you have your clear, some reducer. A 2K has a hardener to it. It's your clear, your hardener, and then possibly a little reducer. We have some clears that are like 4 parts clear, 1 part hardener. That's it. You can add a little reducer if you'd like, depending on, what you're spraying, the coverage, how much you need. So then we get into mixing. So if you hear me say, I sprayed this candy paint, mixed it 2-to-1 or 2-1-to-1, what we're talking there is the ratio 2 parts paint, 1 part reducer, 1 part hardener. So we have these are kind of what I grew up using, these old PPG mixing sticks. And they kind of have, like if we were doing, move this that way. So if we were doing, a 1-to-1, right? You could just go 1 part, 2 parts. If you're going 2-to-1, you could go up to the 2 here and then the 2 down here. So there's different ways of mixing these, you clip it on, figure out your ratio. You mix the first part, then go up to the second part, third if you need it. These days, you also have mixing cups, which come in really handy, especially if you're doing larger quantities. You'll see like 1:1, uh, 1:1 to 1.5, 1 being 70%, it'll break it down, 2:1, 3:1, 4:1, 5:1, 6:1, 8:1. So you have all this. The one thing about mixing, my father being an automotive painter, we could be mixing up, something that's going to take this much paint in here. He'll get out a cup, he'll mix it up to here, just to have the ratios dead on. Um, he used to get really frustrated with me because I'd get a Dixie cup and just eyeball it, and I'd tell him it's a plastic model. It's going to sit in the shelf. It's not a real car that's going to be out in the weather. And man, we would mix clear up like that, clear, hardener, reducer, and just eyeball it, mix it and go. Never had any real issues. Once you work with this stuff enough, you kind of see the consistency in it and kind of know when your ratios are pretty close. If I'm doing 16th scale, 12th scale, A scale, I'm going to get a cup. 24th, 25th, anything smaller, doing interior pieces, eyeball it, right? When you're doing, so I've gotten some Tropical Glitz, MCW, a few different pre-reduced or other paints from some of the guys. And you can use these little droppers, the milliliters, right? So you can just pull it out, go get another one. If you're using paint and hardener, definitely get 2 of these. Don't intermix them. Reducer is fine. So if you're just using a base, you could definitely get your reducer first, put it in, and then go to your color, get it in. You're not going to hurt anything. Using our bases, like you'll see a lot of times I'm using House of Colors, Pearl White on the interiors, the seats. So I have some of that that's pre-mixed, or if I have to add a little more reducer, and then whatever's left, I just pour it back in. You're not going to hurt it. It's when you have the hardener, that's when it's going to harden up and go bad. It has a very short lifespan. So again, that's kind of a quick little walkthrough on the paints, the materials, the differences. Um, so you can kind of see here again, that's the candy orange with clear. We got our candy apple red, urethane, no clear. We got our silver base coat that's been cleared, and our old single stage enamel red. So we got our enamel, our urethane clear, base coat clear. So hopefully that kind of gives you guys a little bit of a walkthrough on the paint. When you hear me talking about mixing ratios, what I'm referring to. Again, bases, things that just have reducer. If you're using something like one of these the pro scale paints, you could mix it up, stir it because it's already reduced, get it into your airbrush. Unless you needed to reduce it anymore, you could. But what's left, you could cycle back into this bottle, and it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt it at all. It's just when you have that hardener component, that's when, once you've done that, it's got a short ratio, and it's going to harden up, and you're done. And you wouldn't want to mix it back in because you'll ruin whatever's left, or whatever size you're mixing it back into. All that would be gone. So that kind of gets us through the paint part of it. As far as the mixing, the ratios, what I've used. We'll do another video kind of on a little more of the prep and stuff. I know I've done some painting videos, but not really gotten too much into the prep. Maybe I'll do some as I'm getting ready to spray. This is the AMT, the old original 36 Ford I'm doing for the Hey Auto custom build. Got the top set. There's a little bit of a gap you can see. That's going to have to be worked over there before it gets painted. Otherwise, we smoothed off the running boards, smoothed off the front of the firewall. So that's going to be a fun It's going to be a fun build. Looking forward to it. And got a few other things coming along as I paint. I'll kind of show you guys some of the prep of what I do and I guess why I do it. Not that it's right or wrong. There's definitely other ways of doing it, and whatever works for you, that's awesome. Let me know in the comments. Um, that about wraps this up. So hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to drop any questions in the comment section. Email me if you'd like, leftcoastmodelcarbuilds@gmail.com. And we got probably at least 1 to 2 more videos that are going to come later today. So keep an eye out for those. Working on them now. Got Belle doing some stuff. So we will catch you guys in a little bit. Happy Sunday, everybody.